How's it going, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome to another episode of Cosplay Con Talk, where we basically discuss everything pertaining to the cosplay community and conventions. Tonight, we're doing another segment on Get to Know That Cosplayer, and tonight's featured cosplay guest is Jason, also known as Nerd Alert Cosplay.
How's it going, Wayne? Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on again. Thank you again for coming on to talk about your cosplaying convention experience. So as you know, this basically gets to know about the cosplayer, how they got started and everything. So to begin, first I gotta ask, how'd you come up with the name Nerd Alert Cosplay?
Oh, that's one of my favorite stories. So I used to work I used to work at Apple in the retail stores, and where there is lots of tech nerds and such. But I had many various types of employees that we would work with, and there was one woman there who constantly would tease me. And every time I was trying to have in-depth conversations with my fellow geeks at Apple, she would sneak up behind me and just interrupt the conversation by saying "Nerd alert." And at first it would bother me, and then I realized I wanted to reclaim that term, and I said, I am a nerd, and I embrace that. So it became Nerd Alert Cosplay.
Nice. So how long have you been cosplaying for?
I like to say that I've been cosplaying before I knew there was actually a term for it. So maybe before the term was invented. I don't know an exact date, but I want to say maybe 10, 11 years.
So
Um,
you're in that category of cosplay veterans, basically.
I guess so. Yes.
Well,
I didn't know what I was doing way back
the
then.
way I see it, if you've been cosplaying and going to cons for more than 10 years, I feel like you're considered that category because you've seen the change
Oh
over
yeah.
the years, from EVA foam not being available to the public to certain props and everything to where now you can like afford everything with just a click of a button on Amazon or eBay or Etsy,
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely. Yeah, and we'll probably get into that. But the transition of pre foam and post foam was a huge deal for me as a foam smith, but a big change in the industry for sure, and the availability of that for sure.
So do you remember what your very first cosplay and convention was?
Two separate stories. My first cosplay was Cyclops. I've always been a fan of X-Men, and that's what brought me into the
Nice.
nerd culture costume. It was before foam, so it was basically um, Under Armour tights, essentially, that you would wear to work out, and some dish gloves, some painted glasses, and it actually never left the house. I was embarrassed by it and never really thought about what it would be like to be in spandex in public. So I took some pictures at home, and it never left the house. The first one that made it to a convention, I would say, is right around Halloween, which I would always make Halloween costumes, and my friend would always want to be X-Men characters for Halloween. I was Cable, so I kept it in the Summers family, and was Cable for Halloween. And then there was a local small convention about 3 weeks after Halloween, and my costume was still fresh, still hanging up in the closet. And someone said, "If you're going to the convention anyway, why not dress up?" And at that point, I had never even thought of doing that before. And it was a local San Francisco Comic Con, I believe it was, and the feedback and the reception was great. People wanted to take pictures. I participated in a really small competition, and ended up taking home, I think, like an honorable mention. So it was a really great experience, and then I was hooked from there, and wanted to dress up for every convention after that.
I mean, looking at your Instagram, you've made elaborate cosplays. I think the one that really shocked me that looks really well done is your Mr. Sinister from the X-Men comics. I wouldn't even
Thank you
guess
so
that.
much.
I wouldn't even guess that was you. Did you use like it looked like you used prosthetics and everything, or like it looked like a
Yes.
mask for a minute. It looked really well done.
People people often tell me it doesn't look like me. Yeah, that I would say that is a very redeeming and very proud costume for me. It was the second time I made it. I made it really early on, probably about 10 years ago. Actually, exactly 10 years ago, because I did a 10-year challenge with it before foam. So having the chance to make it again with some of my newer skills was a really great experience. Yes, it does have prosthetics. There's a whole forehead piece, and then that foam wig and prosthetic teeth. And then obviously I have to shave and covered in
Right.
paint.
I mean, when it comes to body paint, especially painting your face, especially if you're a guy and you want to grow a beard, you're gonna have to sacrifice, but I mean, it looked like it was well worth it. It looked really well done. And if you don't mind me asking before we go further on, how long did that take you to make prior to when you first made it to when you recently did it?
Oh, geez. I think it was, I would say about a 3 to 4 month process. I made it during COVID, so I had lots of free time. Wasn't much to do on weekends and afternoons after work. So about 4 months, and then I couldn't tell you how long the first one took to make because there wasn't much to it. I wasn't tracking things back then on Instagram, to see the timetable.
But I'm sure it was nice to do that 10-year difference to see what you did
Yeah,
then.
it's somewhere. I think if you look in the saved highlight story for Mr. Sinister, there is a story that shows the side by side. It's pretty ridiculous at this point to compare it, but yeah.
Any advice for those who are thinking about wanting to make their own cosplays and everything?
Yeah, I like to share words of wisdom from one of my favorite online cosplay presences, Kumai Cosplay. She has a YouTube channel,
Svetlana, yeah, I've
and
seen her really good work.
she's phenomenal. And I love what she says because she says cosplay is not about talent. Cosplay is about patience and dedication. So when people look at my stuff and say, I could never make that, I don't have any special talents. It's literally taking the hours out of the day to build stuff because it takes time, and probably a little research just about materials and techniques. But there's nothing I'm doing that no one else can do if you have the free time and the money and the time to watch the YouTube videos.
Oh no,
But my other advice would be, although I don't do many tutorials and I don't put a lot of like templates out there, for example, there's so many people that do, and you can learn from them. So Kumai Cosplay, Evil Ted, SKS Props, there's a couple others I could think of off the top of my head. Odin Makes. They're phenomenal YouTubers. They share all their secrets, and it's all the same things I use. And I think once you just have those under your belt, you can make anything. It's just
yeah,
like, again,
even some of
just
those
the time.
cosplayers like have like how-to books now that you can buy online.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I know it's crazy. I know there's some cosplayers, especially the younger generation, who are just wanting to get into it, and they see these impressive cosplays. They think that, oh, so that's what cosplay is. I'll never be able to do that, or they think, oh, my first cosplay has to be this big and expensive that $500 to $1,000
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. Yeah, start small. I think a lot of people start with a prop or maybe just something like wrist guards or a shoulder pad. I think that's a really good way to get started with small pieces. And then eventually, when you feel like you're ready to move on, making something that's kind of more full armor.
I mean, even these cosplayers like Amelia Cosplay and all these ones who basically build their own cosplays, they started basic,
Mhm.
by either buying offline or just buying from a thrift store.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's different kinds of cosplayers. I think buying all your stuff online is totally a valid cosplay
I mean, I do it.
lifestyle. I happen to be a builder, so for me, half the fun is building. So I try not to, if I can make it myself, I want to try to make it myself first. I'm kind of being more lenient on that. Like my Tron cosplay, for example, there's quite a few pieces I purchased online, but the main armor I still made myself.
Actually, speaking of your Tron cosplay, did you make the disc?
No, Steve. I mean, they sell that disc as a toy, and it's just perfect. So why would I? Why would I try to compete with that?
I mean, it looks really well done. I guess on the topic of that, what was it like cosplaying a character from the Tron series?
Uh, Sometimes I feel like I'm carrying the Tron fandom single-handedly on my back, just because I've been singing its praises for so many years now, and I do find my fellow fans out there, people that love the movie as much as I do, and the video game and the cartoon. But it's such a niche kind of community, and if you ever talk to me, it's always been on my dream list. It's always been something I wanted to tackle, and I did a very lazy version of it a few years ago that didn't take any building. But to finally take time to do it now and give it its proper credit and its proper due, it was a really special moment for me. It's also one of those times where putting it on for the first time was really amazing. Working with the photographer and seeing kind of just the image on her viewfinder and being like, this was my vision, and it came to life just the way I wanted. after this many months of working on it. So it was one of those big moments of pride for me to see it all come together.
Nice. Mind giving a shout out to who the photographer was for that Sean photo?
Her name is Caramel Photography. I met her at Dragon Con. The first time I've been working with her. We did 2 shoots that weekend. But Kara, she's phenomenal. Look her up online. I just tagged her recently in my first today's post. So keep a lookout for that.
Speaking of Dragon Con, what was it like when you went for your first time?
Life-changing.
I mean, it's a pretty big con. I feel like it's the kind of cons that you kind of like, in my sense, you have to work up to go into, because I heard it's pretty big and overwhelming and big, huge culture shock.
Potentially. I went for the first time in 2019, and I had, con buddies that kind of showed me the ropes 2 years ago, and it'll now be my favorite con forever. It's just, so the way I like to talk about Dragon Con, and I'll talk about it forever, is most conventions focus on like celebrity autographs. Some conventions focus on merchandising or commercialism,
like San Diego Comic-Con.
Like San Diego, yeah, exactly. And you're talking about long lines, and you're talking about capacity rooms, and not getting into Hall H. And Dragon Con is very specifically about the costumes and the cleverness of the costumes, and about socializing and the kind of party element of convention. So it's, when you get there, all your friends are there, everyone's wearing fun stuff, multiple fun things throughout the weekend.
It's kind of like it's kind of like the Mardi Gras of the cosplay community.
Yes,
in a sense.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's one of the few conventions where you wear something in the day that you're really proud of, that you love wearing, and then by the time the nighttime rolls around, you potentially have a secondary costume that's just more of like something fun to wear while you go out and dance. And they have those all night parties.
Nice.
I mean, the party doesn't stop until 5 a.m. at Dragon Con for 4 nights in a row. So it's, you go with energy.
duly noted.
Yeah. I mean, I still think that Dragon Con is more overwhelming. I think that just the sheer number and scale and crowds, I think that it is way more overwhelming than Dragon Con could ever be. Dragon Con is just kind of like fun and exhausting, but it's
I believe it. I guess now to the topic: advice for first time con goers, whether they're going there to cosplay or they're just there just to see what it's like.
I could go in a couple different directions here. If you're dressing up to a convention, and keep in mind you're going to be in that all day, so either have a handler or someone that can help you go to the bathroom, that will feed you and give you water, maybe hold your things for you, because a lot of cosplays don't have places to keep your phone or your wallet or whatnot. So if you're going in cosplay, try to have someone help you and think about that stuff. If you're not going in cosplay, I would say pace yourself. Be prepared to be exhausted, be standing a long time, waiting in long lines, and try to, because of that, maybe plan your day out beforehand. Make a list of things you want to do, but understand that you're probably not going to get to most of them. Figure out what your priority is, and make sure you make time for those things, and understand that something's got to probably go.
Luckily, some cons have pamphlets to tell you who's doing what at what time. Like, for example, SAC Anime will give you pamphlets to show you who's doing what at this time.
Yeah, do some research. The website or the pamphlet will tell you a schedule of things. Don't just go in there and wing it and walk around, because what will probably happen is your favorite something or other is going on in a room down the hall, and you have no idea, and you would have loved to see it, but you didn't do some research before. So sit down a couple days before, flip through the pages, or scroll through the website, and kind of plan out what things you think are going to be fun for you.
Exactly. Now to some cosplay questions. Have you ever had a cosplay? And this is a question I usually ask, and the answer is always different. Have you ever had a cosplay, either something ripped, tore, fell off, broke, snapped, cracked, and it just, whether it was getting ready for the con or at the con?
Absolutely. I mean, when does that not happen?
Hey, some people don't like to admit it.
I mean, all the time. The problem is, you try on a cosplay in your bedroom for 10 minutes, you look in the mirror, do a spin, and then you take it off and gently put it away. It's not what we call stress tested. So when you're walking down a sidewalk for 3 or 4 blocks, or trying to get from one end of the convention center, rushing
Hmm.
That's a very different level of stress on the costume. I was in my Tron. I was heading to my shoot. I was 10 minutes into my walk, and something just completely snapped up
Oh,
on the
no.
belt line. And I didn't have time to go all the way back to my hotel and fix it because I had a repair kit in my hotel. So instead, I knew of a friend that was staying in a nearby hotel. So instead, I just knocked on his hotel door, asked if he could help me fix it, and then I made it to my shoot on time. And that was really stressful. It's like it's always like, why now? Like, why right now?
It's either, and I've heard other cosplayers say it's either during the photo shoot when it happens, or like right after the photo shoot, it's just when something just goes amiss.
Right.
At least,
If it's
and it's good to also have the friends who can help you repair your cosplay too.
Yeah. They also have the people walking around the convention that just gladly help you fix things. They're repair stations.
Um,
I would rather something break for a photo shoot because what you can do is kind of fix it in post. You know, you
mhm.
can Photoshop that little tear or whatever. The prop for me, since I used to be heavily involved in the competitive world of cosplay, right before you walk on stage,
Mhm.
I've had things kind of not be working right, and that's a nightmare because it was fine all day, and now when the judges and a giant crowd are going to see it, you walk across stage, now it suddenly doesn't want to work right.
It's just like the
That
cosplay knows.
Yeah, exactly. Like you couldn't have waited 5 more minutes to do this. Yeah.
What was it like competing for competitions for your for cosplay?
Um, uh, I love it and hate it at the same time. I hate to say that. I don't do it as much anymore. It puts a lot of pressure on you. It's very exciting, and it kind of it makes it something to look forward to. I think some of the problems with convention competitions is if you don't win something and you're really happy with what you made,
Mhm.
sometimes it can be really defeating for you and make you think like your thing wasn't good enough when it actually was spectacular. The, you never know what the judges are looking for. You never know what judges you're going to have on the panel that day. They could be super into one type of style and not the style that you brought to the table, but it's not a reflection of the time and effort and awesomeness of what you made. So when I would lose competitions or not placing competitions, I hated the feeling of going home feeling kind of defeated. Um, I get super nervous right before I go on stage, like shaking nervous. When was it? I believe it was, I want to say I was Onslaught, about to go on stage for San Diego Comic Con. That is one of the most intense competitions. It's almost an all day event to
I
get ready
believe
for.
it. I believe it, especially with such a big con in California.
Yeah, and their masquerades are music, lights, performance, dance numbers. Like it's not
Skits
just
and all
walking
that
through the
stuff.
masquerade. Yeah, and I remember they had us be in costume, ready to go, probably 2 hours before the actual walk across the stage. So I'm standing in costume, haven't eaten, haven't drinking water, standing in an awkward way. There's these giant steps to get on the stage, and I just remember looking at the stagehand right before it was my turn to walk, and I said, I'm kind of blacking out. And she said, are you okay? And I said, no, my vision is blacking out. And I don't know, it was a combination of standing all day, having nothing in my stomach, and just the nerves of making sure I get it right on stage. And she kind of held my hand, and like I snapped out of it because I was like, you just have to make it 30 more seconds and then you can go sit down. And I kind of held it together, walked across the stage. Everything went the way it was supposed to go. And that was turned out to be one of the more successful competitions. But scary thought of what would have happened if I fell in that big suit.
Oh man, I mean,
Very scary.
what? So who is Onslaught from?
Onslaught is an X-Men villain. He kind of looks like Magneto, but he is a psychic being that is the combination of Professor X's mind and Magneto's mind turned into a
This
psychic.
is he that one? I think I saw on your Instagram. He has like the weird tendril things on his arm.
No, that's Omega Red.
Okay, I forgive me for not being
It's okay.
familiar. Another amazing cosplay. I mean, it seems like you've done a lot of big cosplays over the years. Out of all the characters you've cosplayed in the past 10 years, who would you say what was your biggest project ever to do?
The biggest project ever to do was definitely the Power Rangers Megazord. It was
Wait,
nearly
you cosplayed as a Megazord?
yes. it was the longest project ever, the largest, and kind of the hardest to move in. Again, I was 8 feet tall. I couldn't even stand up in it in my apartment. I had to take it outside to do a test
Oh,
fit.
jeez.
And I wouldn't say it was my favorite at this point, as proud as I am of it, just because it's hard to wear. It's in storage now,
I
just because it's
mean,
just so
imagine how
quiet.
the guy felt who played as the actual Megazord in the TV show. I'm sure they were going through the exact same thing you were going
Yeah,
through.
they were in there for hours, right? Yeah.
Oh,
So there's a
jeez.
difference. So that was definitely the biggest undertaking. I don't think we call that in the community, we call that a larger than life cosplay, because it's not your 6 foot human proportions. It's you have to figure other stuff out. So it's stilts. I had puppeted arms, so my arms were not my arms. I was kind of manning the arms with handles. It you've seen them out there, like they're from certain video games, these larger than life kind of puppeted cosplays. And I
Hmm.
just don't I wouldn't recommend it to anyone else unless you're really passionate about a certain thing. It's I don't know if I could commit to something that big again.
What
So
did you do it
I'm kind
yourself,
of
or did you
going
have like a team with you to make that one?
no, made it all myself. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Every piece of it. Such a passion project.
I guess any advice for those who want to make a big, humongous cosplay like that? I mean, I've heard people wanted to make Gundams or kaijus and everything.
Yeah, that all along the same lines. My advice there, I'm a stickler for proportions. So oftentimes I see people put, a great amount of work into separate pieces of a costume, but then not really take a step back and see if the proportions are working. So it's like, oh, my legs are too short suddenly, or like the arms don't match the lower body. So what I did was, again, if you're looking for this, it's documented on my page. I laid out a giant roll of butcher paper on my floor.
Butcher
I
paper.
traced a butcher paper, like a big roll of brown paper.
Oh, like they used to draw out proportions or certain parts of the cosplay.
That's what it was for, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So like a crime scene, I outlined my body in there, and then I overlaid that with sketches of how big the legs, arms, and body should be, so that I could keep in mind the proportions. And I kept going back to that giant drawing of myself to say how big certain pieces should have been, and that helped me keep everything kind of symmetrical in terms of how big everything should be. That's what I would say is a really good start.
Oh, geez. What kind of materials did you use for that big beast of a cosplay?
I tried to do is I think it was probably 100% EVA foam. It's just various thicknesses of EVA foam.
Which I'm sure is which I know to this day is a cosplayer's best friend.
It's my best friend. Yeah, I won't use anything else. I think a lot of people have moved on to casting and to 3D printing, which I think is a very viable method. But if I can make it in foam, I want to figure out how to make it in foam.
I remember hearing stories how from other cosplayers how they used to use gym mats or yoga mats
Mhm.
to for S or EV quote unquote EVA foam.
Yes, I started there because it was the easiest thing to find, because we didn't know where to find other types of EVA foam. I look back at my costumes that still have that ribbed padding on the back, or that ribbed pattern on the back, and
Hmm.
I cringe a little bit, but it's what we had to do.
Oh, it's just that's pretty crazy. I like I said, I'm sure it's been nice being able to use EVA foam. Have you also so with you making the kind of cosplays do you do commissions for other cosplayers?
I don't, mainly because for a few reasons. I mean, I have a full-time job, and I try to have a pretty full-time social life. So when I take on a project for myself, it literally takes up every bit of free time that I have. So I wouldn't want to commit to helping someone else make something and then not have the time for everything else.
Yeah,
Um,
makes
I,
perfect sense.
I also think it's not as fun to make things for other people. Like,
Because you know
what if
you're
I
gonna have to you're gonna have to deliver send it to them once you're done, kind of thing.
well, first of all, yeah, what if I love it and then I have to say goodbye, like, seeing my child leave? But also, I think I would put in more. I think I put in the most um, energy and passion when it's something that I know that I love, that I'm going to get to show off afterwards. Yeah, that's
Nice.
why a lot of people say, "Oh, you should make this, or you should make this character, you should do this character. And it's like, do you know it takes about 3 to 4 months of my life to dedicate it to a character that I just, that I don't know or that I just kind of like. So I would love to make everything, but you have to pick and choose.
True. Speaking of time frame, how long did it take to make your Megazord from Power Rangers?
I just recently tried to look back at the time frame, and I think it was 6 months from beginning to end.
Jeez, is that I take it
Yeah,
that's like the longest you've ever done for a project?
yeah, yeah.
Jeez, that's like almost
The
a good year almost.
It really was. And I was actually making mini costumes in between, smaller costumes in between, because I had to have multiple things ready. Yeah. I was in a long-term relationship, and there wasn't a lot of time for cosplay. And my partner at the time had tried to keep me from, dedicating too much time. And when we broke up, I told myself, what am I going to do with all this freedom that I have now? Like, I can make anything I want. I can spend day and night on any cosplay I want. And I was like, this is the time to make the Megazord. So it was kind of like my redeeming moment of saying, this is me
Hey,
time. This is what I want to do.
makes sense, and I'm sure the end kind of turned out how you wanted it to be.
It was a symbol of what I could do if I had complete freedom over my time. So
Nice. Another question I always ask, what's that one cosplay that you have not done in so long that you would want to eventually love to bring back?
it would definitely be Onslaught. That one I mentioned before. It was the first big costume I was kind of associated with. People would be like, "Oh, Jason, he's the guy that made Onslaught." It won me my first big awards, and I love how it came out. Even though it was an earlier project, I still think it stands up to my standards today. It is sitting in storage in my parents' house, and I have not worn it in quite some time. So I would love to pull that one out and wear it again.
Nice. And a follow-up question, what's that one cosplay that was kind of a one and done cosplay, like you've done it once and you probably would never want to do it again?
Hmm. There's
This
costumes. I'll tell. This is a good story. So
this question usually stumps a lot of people, so don't worry.
I'll give a couple examples. So I made a transformer, Soundwave, my favorite transformer, and I think I wore it to two conventions at the time, and then I just wasn't super passionate about putting it on again, but I still loved it. And I have a friend back in the Bay Area. Before I moved, he always asked me, "Would you ever sell me that Soundwave?" And right when I was moving, I said, "This is maybe the time to let it go." So his name is Chosen One Apparel. He's on Instagram. He now owns my Soundwave, and he's giving it a second life. So even though I would
Nice.
never want to wear it again, he's showing it off and making people love it again. So
Nice.
yeah, but I'll use that one. I,
Eh,
I would dread having to get back in the Megazord, but I think I would do it if the opportunity was right.
what con I imagine you took your Megazord to a con?
Yes, I went to WonderCon, I believe. Yeah, the thing WonderCon in Anaheim. The thing with the Megazord is I won't be able to ship it. So unless I'm driving it somewhere, it's not being seen. So WonderCon it's about a 6-7 hour drive for where I lived at the time, and I packed it in the car, drove down to Anaheim, and that was like the one big debut for it.
Jeez, I can
I've done
imagine.
photo shoots in it, and I've done little like film projects in it, but that was the one con that
I
I
just
wore
can't
it to.
imagine trying to get in that thing. It seems like so many pieces.
I made it so that it's shockingly easy to get in and out of. It's a giant box that slips over my head, and the arms are already attached, and then I just hold someone's hand and I step into the backs of the boots, the giant animal boots.
Kind of
And
like what
the
they do with like, well, kind of like what cosplayers do, like when they're going as Hulkbuster.
I would imagine, I think I've seen some Hulkbusters that are way more complicated to get into, but I can get in and out of the Megazord um, in probably about 2 minutes. In fact, I did now I'm remembering I wore it to more conventions. So I wore it to a local convention in San Francisco, and I there was these small steps to get onto the stage for the competition, and there's no way I could walk up those steps with it on, or walk to the stage with it on. So I had to suit up on stage. So that was a big testament to be like, how fast can I get in this thing while the judges are staring at me, waiting for me to like go? So it was like run up these stairs. My attendee or my handler was there. We did the full like quick thing. I jumped into the boots and I walked back and forth, and then I got out of it and walked off stage. So it is a bit of a quick change.
Nice.
Yeah,
I imagine it's nice to have a handler, especially for bigger cosplays, to help you maneuver around the con and everything.
it is a must, I would say. Um, I have two of my really close friends. They're always with me, and one of them always offers to be my handler. And sometimes they say, "We're gonna go, we're gonna go do something for a while. Are you okay?" And I say, "Yes, but I can't move from this spot until you get back." So
You're kind of
yes, go have
you're
fun.
kind of stuck there. You're like the little kid whose mother tells him, "Wait right here. We'll be right back."
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be right here when you get back. So yeah, yeah, you are at the mercy of your handler for sure.
Hey, but at least like you said, it's good to have them, especially like again from a cosplayer heard that when I asked them, is it easy to go to the bathroom when you're in these big, massive cosplays?
Secret, we don't. We just don't go to the bathroom. And in fact, some people will purposely not drink water so that they won't have to use the restroom. And that's
Or
just a
some will do
recipe
like the
for
whole
disaster.
catheter thing.
Oh, no, no, no.
I mean,
I
I
don't want
mean,
to do
I'm just,
that.
I mean, I'm not sure if people would do that, but if like when you gotta go, I mean, if your hotel is literally like right next to the convention center, just run to the hotel, use the bathroom there, and then
Yeah. There's some kind of weird, I'm convinced there's some weird adrenaline rush when you're in cosplay that prevents you from having to use the bathroom. So you just like, I can make it. I can make it.
Oh,
Let me wait till the end of the day.
I wholeheartedly agree on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now to the portion of this interview I always try to ask. That's why I think I'm kind of gonna extend these interviews a little bit longer. Any cosplay horror stories you'd like to share, or any kind of fun an experience you thought was funny to you?
Hmm. um, me and my friend have this funny game. He's my fellow cosplayer. It's Visor Builds. He's always my partner in crime. We have this running gag that we spend months working on things. We're super passionate about our characters. We always go out and walk out together and walk through and take pictures and everything. And the funniest thing that always happens to us is inevitably someone will always come up to either one of us and say, "I love your blank costume," which is completely not what the character is. They invent their own character or they misinterpret it. And we spend the day laughing at each other to see who's going to get the worst misinterpretation of their costume. And whoever gets it first, it becomes a running gag, and we poke at each other and make fun of each other about it. So that will always happen no matter what. And that's like a game we play.
What's the weirdest things you guys ever been mistaken for in your cosplays?
So when I'm Onslaught, it's not a super recognizable character. It's not a main villain. People would often just say Big Magneto or Armored Magneto, which is not too far off. But then one person kept calling me Baymax from Big Hero 5. And it's like, this is my favorite character in the world. And you're calling it this thing that is like completely off. So yeah, a little frustrating.
I'm looking up Onslaught right now because I'm kind of curious.
Oh yeah. He's very striking as a
Oh wow,
character
he
design.
just looks like a nightmare filled version of I can definitely see the Magneto. Oh crap. Yeah, he's like Spawn met had a baby with Magneto. Holy shit.
He's very 90s. He's like the pinnacle of 90s
And
character
that's the
design.
and I mean I can see why you almost nearly passed out in that cosplay. That's
Yeah,
like a lot.
very.
I mean, I imagine you were sweating too.
Yeah, for sure. And this cons are always in the summer. They're always outdoors. So yeah, it's all part of the game. It's a really disgusting sight to see when you're taking it off, and just a
It's
mess.
crazy. Thoughts on thrifting, for first time cosplayers. What are your thoughts on that?
Describe that term.
Like, if a cosplayer's on a budget, they don't really have a whole lot of money, would you recommend them going to like a thrift store to find stuff for their cosplay?
Oh yeah, of course. I think cosplay is everything. I've often found really cheap items that weren't meant to be something, but reappropriated them. That's what cosplay is all about. It's like transforming something into something else. Thrift store, like Halloween spirit store items that you can like return or refresh into something else. Yeah, that's the beauty of cosplay, is like take something cheap and transform it.
I wholeheartedly agree on that. Now probably two more questions to go. Any future cosplays or projects that you're working on that you would like to share or you would want to do later down the road?
Yes. I think my next big project, I'm such a fan of kind of 90s nostalgia and villains. I always want to be kind of big, scary villains. I think when I'm ready, and I'm going to take a long break, when I'm ready to sit down and start something big again, I'm thinking about doing Super Shredder from Ninja Turtles 2, the live
Oh,
action.
the when he's like the when he gets mutated and everything towards the end of the movie. I know exactly
Yeah.
what who you're talking about.
It's literally in 2 minutes of the movie, but to me as a kid, it was such this giant comic book character on my TV screen that I have to do that.
Man, I mean, in the movie itself, that was all practical effects too.
Yeah. Oh, it's a cosplayer's dream. Yeah. It's like
Oh,
look at all
jeez.
these real costumes.
That'd be pretty cool. Any projects you're recently working on right now?
Let me see. I keep a list. So it's my cosplay wish list. I think. Oh, so the other thing too is I I'm trying to learn how to sew and incorporate more cloth and more sewing into my cosplay,
That'd be
because
pretty
I'm
good.
always all foam. And I want to expand my horizons. So I was trying to think about what would be the perfect costume that mixes a lot of sewing
And what
and a
you
little
do?
bit of armor. And keeping with my 90s nostalgia villain theme, I think M. Bison from Street Fighter, from the original Street Fighter. I want the hat, I want the giant shoulder pads. That would be a really cool costume to wear. So that's those two are on my list probably for sometime next year.
Nice. Well, I'm hopefully looking forward to seeing them. Now
Thank
to end this podcast, any last minute advice do you want to share out those for those who are listening to this, just in general, or stuff you want to, share?
just do it. Like people are so timid about getting started, and they tell me, I can never do that. I can never be a cosplayer. Just start something, and you'll get there. Like, do you think on day one when I did my first cut of foam for a 6-month Megazord, could I ever have the foresight of ever thinking I'd finish? No, you just have to kind of dive in and make progress, and things happen, and give yourself enough time. Don't I'm a big time crunch, a hater of time crunches or con crunches. So,
A cosplayer's worst nightmare.
and it doesn't have to be. Start early, or try not to, if it's not finished for this convention, finish it next time. Don't put yourself through the stress of sleepless nights to make something that's subpar. But for me, the way I combat that is giving myself 4 to 6 months to finish something ahead of time. So if it's a July convention, I start in September, or what, if
I
that's what
mean,
the case.
I mean, especially if you're doing big builds like your Megazord. I mean, yeah, no, I agree on the whole, give yourself time, don't try to do it, don't think you can do it last minute and then day of the con, you have nothing.
Right.
And also, I think another question, would you agree on if you can't get a cosplay finish, would you agree on bringing a backup cosplay, something that you've already done that you can just easily put on, take to the con?
Nowadays I say yes very much. I used to be a little bit snobby, where it's like every convention needs brand new costumes, and I don't want to wear the same thing that people have already seen. But I think I've kind of, that was back in my competition days. I've evolved way beyond that. I love wearing my go-to stuff now, and the ones that feel comfortable, and the ones that I know are like they're going to work no matter what. So
Nice.
yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add real quick?
I'll give a nice plug for a mantra that we have in the community, which is cosplay is for everyone. Size, shape, background, look. Don't think that because you have a certain look, you can't cosplay a certain character. Make it your own, have fun with it, and don't limit yourself by what you think you can or cannot pull off.
No, oh, most definitely. I agree on that. I think that should do it. Again, Jason, thank you for coming on to Cosplay Contalks, get to know that cosplayer and definitely sharing your cosplay, and convention experience and also talking about some of the builds you made. Looking forward to, getting this up and everything so people can listen to it. Again, thank you.
Thank you. This was really fun. Anytime. All right.
And
Have a good rest of your day.
yeah, and as always, everyone, thanks again for watching this episode of Cosplay Con Talk. Until next time, thank you for listening, and as always, thank you for watching.